I'm Dale from Dale's Gig Reviews and Metallaville Online Magazine, and I'm joined by Hirsh Gardner. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Dale, and thanks for having me.
Yes, it's I'd like to say a pleasure, but I've got hair envy. Your hair is just like, and I'm losing mine.
Yeah, I still got some hair, man. So,
Yeah,
so
some
my hair
some.
used my hair used to be my logo. So when I
Yeah,
signed my autograph, I would just like do all the little curls things. So if you and I had our logos together, yours would be like really nice and smooth and round, and then of course mine would be all the mess that you see now. So there you go.
yeah, it's fantastic. I've been looking at your pictures online, and it's just your curls and that. Like, it is your signature. It really is.
Yeah, yep.
So you're a multi-instrumentalist, I believe I've got the term correct. You play everything.
Let me define that a little bit because I don't want to overstate things. So I'm a drummer, and of course I've been drumming for a million years. So yeah, as far as the drumming is concerned, no problem. Vocalist, yes, I've been singing all my life, so yeah, that counts. Piano, I just kind of chord out things on the piano, but I would never call myself a pianist like some of the Jimmy Waldo, my cohort in New England, for instance. And as far as guitar, yeah, I just chunk out some chords, and basically I learned how to play piano and guitar just so I could write songs, and that worked out okay. So multi instrumentalist, man, I'm no Prince, I'll tell you that. Now that guy's a multi instrumentalist, right? Was at least. Rest in peace,
Was,
my
yeah.
friend. So yeah,
Yeah,
there
but
you go.
the English audience would know you best as the drummer from New England, and
Right.
yeah, and that's it's more of a melodic sort of a melodic rock, isn't it? The stuff I listen to, it reminded me a lot of ELO and that sort of music. It wasn't the sort of music I listened to when I was younger.
Ah, what music did you listen to?
Megadeth, Slayer, the
Oh
heavy
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah. The heavy
And
stuff. I love that shit. But
yeah, angry teenager.
yeah, I think I used to be, but I can't remember back that far.
Yeah. So you was you've I've got the date down here. I can't see when you formed, because you've been going quite a while in New England. When you first started out, how many? What were the year? I can't find my date.
Well, let's see. So New England went through several iterations before we actually became New England, but it was mostly the same guys. So
Yeah,
basically, John Fannin, Gary Shea, Jimmy Waldo, and myself were the core. And, I went to Berklee College of Music in the early 70s. And after I left school, I was one of the founding members of New England with Jimmy Waldo. And then we got John Fannin in the band, and then Gary Shea joined. And we played under different band names throughout the 70s. And then we broke up for a few years. And then in '77, we got back together, and that
yeah.
was that was actually the beginning date of New England. And I think '79 is when our first albums came out, and we went on tour all over the world. So that's when things really started
With
to
them
heat up
guys.
for us
Yeah, you
with
went
those
on tour
guys.
with them
Yeah,
guys. Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So you were lucky enough to go on tour with Kiss. Um, I've literally just been talking about Kiss on another interview, and I got to see Kiss about 3 years ago at Download Rock Festival in the UK, and it was my actual first introduction to Kiss because
Ah,
when I listened to the heavier stuff, they were coming out with Crazy Nights and God Gave Rock and Roll to You, and it was very poppy. So I didn't really listen to them. So here I am at Download Rock Festival, and I was amazed by how heavy these guys were. And you got Gene Simmons with the blood coming out of his mouth, and they were absolutely fantastic. So back in the '70s, they must have been a lot different than the poppy stuff I'd heard when I was younger.
you know, one of the greatest things about Kiss, and one of the things that I learned, but standing on the side of the stage, after we got off, was just, yeah, you're a musician first. You're always a musician. You're a songwriter. You're a drummer, and we New England was, four really really talented musicians. But I'll tell you what, people are there to see a show. They're there to see the bombast. They're there to see the lights and the fireworks and listen to the music as well. Um, as we toured with Kiss, I think that we kind of got a little bit more showy and a little more like rock and roll rock star type of a vibe because that's one of the things that Paul told us when we were in the studio, because of course Paul Stanley produced our first album, was that this is entertainment and people are paying a lot of money these days to see a show and you better be able to put one on. So yeah, that those guys were it was a great learning experience being on the road with those guys.
Yeah, that's what one of my questions were, is because obviously you were quite young guys at the time, and you're out on tour with these, and you obviously must have learned quite a lot from them. But surely you learned how to party as well.
Man, boy, that's a whole separate interview. The party scene back then was just fantastic, and yeah, we would party with our manager Bill O'Coin, at the top of his apartment in New York City, and everybody would be there. Rod Stewart would be there. The guys in Kiss would be there. It's like we met so many amazing musicians, and yeah, so it was a good time to be in a band, and it was a good time to party. So
Yeah,
yeah.
because it must have been so exciting at that time of your career. You're learning the trade, you're crafting your music, and you're hanging around with all these musicians and all these different influences. It must have been just so exciting for you back then.
It really was, and I got to meet so many amazing rock stars and the guys that I was enamored by, and and of course we played with Cheap Trick. And, I met all the guys in the band, and Bunny Carlos became a good buddy, and then we played with Kiss and AC/DC,
Yeah.
Journey, Kansas, Styx. The list of John Cougar Mellencamp. Of course, we got in a fight with him, but um, Thin Lizzy, which was an amazing tour to be on. So yeah, it was really a dream come true. And as you're living it, it sort of passes you by kind of quickly. And after it's all over, you get to think back about, holy crap, man, be on stage with Kiss. I got to be on stage with Styx. It was pretty cool. It was very, very cool.
See, you're not arrogant enough. You should have been looking at it the other way round. Hey, these guys got to meet Hirsch.
Yeah. Well, I got a couple of funny stories. With Paul.
Seem to have.
That is, at the top of his game right now. And Ron and I became friends. And he had told me, as a matter of fact, there's an interview on my website that Ron went to see Kiss and at Madison Square Garden in New York, and we were the opening act. And I guess he was begging his parents to go see this show, and that was the first show that he ever went to see. And New
Yeah.
England was the first band that he ever saw live on stage at Madison Square Garden. So when he told me that story, that was such a thrill. And there was another story that I had heard. Pantera came through Boston, and Aaron was their sound guy, and he was a good friend of mine. And he calls me up, when he's on the road. And he says, "Hey, you want to come and see the band? We're playing close to Boston." I said, "Oh man, I'd love to." So I took my young daughter with me. She was about 12 or 13, so she was kind of hip to the whole thing about being a rock star and all that stuff, right? So after the show, Aaron invites me back. He says, "Well, come on, I'll introduce you to the band." So that was a thrill. So I go in and I meet Vinny, the drummer, and he was kind of like a superstar in my eyes. He's an amazing drummer. And so Aaron then says, "Come on, I want you to meet Dimebag. You want to come over and say hello?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So I'm walking over to Dimebag, and he looks at me, and he goes, "I know you." He said, "You're in that band New England." And I was like, and my daughter's looking back at me like, "Whoa, my daddy's a real rock star." So Diamond and I talked for a couple of minutes, and he told me a similar story to the one that Bumblefoot told me. We were playing in Fort Worth, Texas with Journey and AC/DC, and Dime was in the front row. And he wasn't really playing rock and roll at that time. I think he said he was like 14, 15, 16 years old. And he told me that that show, not necessarily New England, but that show itself inspired him so much that he wanted to be that rock star that he eventually became.
Yeah.
And, you know, God rest in peace. You know, he was such a gentleman and such a great guy, an
Yeah.
amazing talent. But for me to hear that story from him was just like, wow, that's incredible. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
That's brilliant. Because you grew up in Toronto, I believe, and what were the scene like in Toronto?
Well, that kind of got me into, rock and roll. I mean, I was a young jazz drummer, and I had a little trio, and we were playing around Toronto. And then eventually, Ed Sullivan Show, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, all these bands. Go, wait a minute, what am I doing playing jazz? I want to do that kind of rock and roll.
Yeah.
So I started a blues band called the Blues Faction, and we were playing a lot in Yorkville Village. Now, Yorkville Village was the Greenwich Village in of Canada. So we had people like Joni Mitchell, Luke and the Apostles, David Clayton Thomas, who eventually joined Blood, Sweat and Tears or formed Blood, Sweat and Tears, Steve Stills, Neil Young, all of these incredible musicians that bloomed at a later date. They were kind of like my peers in Toronto, and we were all playing the same clubs. So the Toronto music scene was just really a sort of a kick in the butt for me, and so I eventually decided that I wanted to be professional musician and learn more music. So I went to school at Berkeley in Boston, and that's what brought me from Toronto to Boston, where I was introduced to the whole scene down here and got to meet people like Steven Tyler and the guys in Aerosmith and the guys in Cars. And Boston's a small city, so everybody here knows everybody,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. So,
I'm hoping
but Toronto was a
my
great scene.
picture. I'm hoping my picture is all right on your side, but on my side, you keep on freezing, but we can still hear what you're saying, so it's okay, I suppose.
Oh, am I
Yeah.
freezing up over here?
Yeah. You keep on
Oh,
freezing, but it's okay. It's freezing on your good side, so it's all right.
okay,
I haven't got a New England album, but I've got a Boston one there, because that's where you are.
cool.
I
Yep, I
thought
see it.
I thought that'd be appropriate having a Boston backdrop.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, well, AC/DC is one of my all-time favorite bands, as it is. I think most people, anybody who seems to be into rock and metal and into AC/DC, and your new stuff, your solo stuff, that your three albums, I can hear different influences, including your AC/DC and um, and you mentioned like Beatles and Stones and got you into it, but the rock bands that you obviously toured around with, like AC/DC and Kiss, obviously influenced your solo work.
Yes, sure did. Playing with AC/DC and standing at the side of the stage, and watching Malcolm and what Phil Rudd was such an
Yeah,
amazing drummer. Very simple, very, very simple. And I mean that in the best of terms. But that was an education for me as well. It's just like, wow, I mean, I want to write music that sounds like that kicks ass like that. And so I've got a song like Holding Out on Me, which was one of the New England songs that I covered, was very
yeah,
much like AC/DC. And yeah, so I think that there were a lot of influences from that era. Well, I guess one of the things that I could say about my solo albums, and I don't listen to it a lot, but some of it came up on my Spotify in the last month or so. And there's a real diversity on in the three albums. I mean, you've got like some super ballads that are just maybe just piano and vocal and maybe an acoustic guitar, and then you've got, a song like "Don't Ever Want to Lose You," which just kicks ass. So I like the fact that I can jump from a ballady song to something that's like heavy metal. It's I think that shows a real diversity in the songwriting, and as opposed to just being kind of like a monolithic type of a you know heavy metal all the way through. That kind of bores me a little bit, but I like listening to some bands that are out there that have that diversity.
As I've grown older, I've mellowed in my old age, and I start to enjoy
Uh-huh.
more of the bluesier sounds and the slower sounds, as well as the heavy metal sounds. And I've got more of an appreciation for bands that I would never have entertained, never would have listened to, when I was younger. And I think that's why I
Mhm.
enjoyed your third CD, Third Time's a Charm. I enjoyed that one particularly more out of all three of them, and that one seemed to resonate a lot more with me. And then I found out that on the B side, it was all New England tracks that you re-recorded.
Yes. Yeah. Several years ago, Jimmy Waldo, my keyboard player in New England, we were in LA and we were in a recording studio. And just as a warm up to our session that we were doing, I said, "Yeah, let's just lay down some of the tracks for Don't Ever Want to Lose You," because we both knew the song and it was really easy. So we laid down the tracks and we recorded them, just the drums and keyboards. And so several years later, when I was in the production for Third Time's a Charm, I came across those original tracks. And I said, "Oh my God, that sounds amazing." The drum sound was very cool. And of course, Jimmy Waldo's keyboards were stellar. So I just for a goof, just for fun, I laid down a lead vocal and put the background vocals in. And I said, "My God, this really sounds cool." And I'm sure that you know the band Pretty Maids and Chris Laney, who's a dear friend now. And Chris and I were working together on my album. He actually co-produced it and mixed the album for me, which is why Third Time's a Charm sounds so damn good. So I sent Chris the tracks to Don't Ever Want to Lose You, and Chris was a huge New England fan. And I said, "Man, would you put down some guitar tracks on that?" And he says, "Are you serious, Hirsch?" He said, "I'd be honored to do that." So he played all the guitars, and Gary Shea and, of course, Jimmy Waldo's keyboard parts were there, and I sang all the vocals, the backgrounds, and everything. And the song just turned out so good that I decided to cover some of the other New England songs that I was doing lead vocals on and that I was a co-writer on. And I ended up recording 6 New England songs, and I think they sounded great. And I really truly believe that "Don't Ever Want to Lose You" never really attained the heights of success that it should have. It's an amazing song. John Fannon, I think that's probably one of the best songs John ever wrote, and so I just wanted to give that song a second go at it because I think it deserved that. But
Yeah.
it was so much fun recording all the New England songs, and of course Bumblefoot played all the guitars on "Nothing to Fear," which was one of New England's most popular songs, and I was thrilled that he wanted to do that. And I've got all the New England guys on one of the songs. I've got Alan Sorensen from Pretty Maids playing drums on "Holding Out on Me." So if you
Yeah.
listen to that, that's not me playing drums. That's Alan, and he's a mother. You know what I'm saying? Alan, I
Well,
love you wherever you are.
well, it's really funny because with me not being familiar with England and any of the songs, and I listened to your music before I listened to New England, so
Hmm.
I've listened to it with different ears than people who are fans. And I've got to say, the stuff that you've recorded on this album, I much preferred than the original New England stuff. I hope you don't mind
Okay.
me saying that. It's like
Well,
it's a different take on it.
it is, yeah. And it's funny, my wife says the same thing. She says, "Why are you recording all these New England songs? Because your songs are so much better." It's like, well, I mean, it's a tribute to the band that I
Yeah,
spent most of my life in. And I think that the response from the fans, the New England fans, has been fantastic. I mean, they
Yeah.
they really loved hearing a remake of some of those songs more in the 2025 vibe
Yeah.
as opposed to the 80s vibe. So
It seems to have a more of a heavy feel to them, which again resonates better with me. So I did really appreciate the difference in sound. It's a bit like when I first heard. I mean, this is thrash metal, but when I first heard Anarchy in the UK, it was Anarchy in the USA, and it was sung by Megadeth, and I loved
yep.
it. And then I heard Sex Pistols after, not before, and I heard the Sex
Mm.
Pistols version. I'm like, oh no, Megadeth's is so much better.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like different way of hearing it, and it's a refreshing way of listening to it as well, I think.
Yeah, it's very true. And I wanted the New England stuff to be tougher and harder and
Yeah,
more gritty. And it turned out that way. I mean, even a song like "Hello, Hello, Hello," which was, "Hello, Hello, Hello." I mean, if you talk about ELO, I mean that's a typical ELO song. But you got the drums slamming in that song, and you got the chuk 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 guitar going on. So
yeah,
even a lighter song like "Hello" turned out to be a rocker, and I love that. It's pretty
yeah.
cool.
So the album Third Time's Charm, I really enjoyed. But you did 2003 Wasteland for Broken Hearts, great title.
Yes,
2017 My Brain Needs a Holiday, even better title.
thank you.
And so, were you drumming and singing, or did you have people doing the drums, or how did that work for them albums?
Well, I mean, I played all the drums, and I would say 90% of the vocals are all me singing.
Yeah,
The backgrounds and all that. Because I've got my little home studio. It's not really a fancy place, but it's all the best equipment, and and I'm sitting at home, and I feel like recording a background vocal. I'll just do the root third, fifth, and octave part, and just do it all myself. And one of the joys of working with somebody like Mike Stone, who produced Queen, Asia, Journey,
yeah,
was standing over his shoulder and watching him his technique on recording background vocals. And some of the songs actually have 40 or 50 of me singing the background vocals because I just wanted that huge, fat, thick sound.
yeah,
And so, I'd sing a part like, "Oh, baby, I love you," and I would sing it maybe, 16 times. And then I would do the harmony, "Oh, baby, I love you," up a third, and I'd sing that 16 times. And then combine them all down to just like a stereo track. And
yeah,
watching Mike Stone do that, and of course, if you watch the Queen movie that just came out a few years ago, you see Roger in the studio multi-tracking all of his vocals, and the producer saying, "Yeah, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again." And that's kind of the concept that I used when I was recording my vocals. So I hope that answers your question. I might have got off on a tangent, but that's the way I
oh,
did it.
you're fine. I like it when they go off on a tangent. I just like to listen and find out about the process, and who did guitars and bass on your albums? Did you have different guitarists, or did you stick with the same musicians?
No, there's all different people. So my main guitarist is a gentleman named Joe Filoni, who's a local Boston guy, and I've known Joe for many years. He is a monster player, just a monster. Of course, John Fannin joined me on one or two songs on guitar, Gary Shea on bass, and a friend of mine, David Sumner, who's he's a true multi-instrumentalist. David plays everything and plays it really well. David's currently living down in Florida, but he was living up here in Boston, and he would get together with me almost daily. And if I needed an acoustic guitar part, he could play it. If I needed a bass part, he could play it. And a song like "Miles and Miles Away," which is a really beautiful ballad, David played the keyboards on that track and
Yeah,
did a magnificent job. Just did a great job. So I used a lot of different people.
yeah.
I've always done
Oh,
that.
are you quite the perfectionist though, and the hard taskmaster? You're not doing that right. Do it like this, or do you just let it flow?
Well, yeah, I've been producing bands for years, and
Yeah,
it's a psychological mind meld when you're working with somebody. You've got to inspire them, even when they're not doing what is in your ear. And I hear everything, so at least I try to hear everything. And if I hear something that's not perfect, say, hey man, that was pretty amazing. There's one of those. Let's just do it again. Let's get one more out of you. And yeah, you've got to when you're producing your own stuff and recording all your own stuff, it's you're putting layer after layer after layer together, and you've got to make sure that you've got that clarity. I mean, I've heard a lot of producers record stuff, and it just sounds mushy. Everything's like all over the place. So yeah, you've got to be a taskmaster in a way, but you've got to do it the right way.
yeah.
So
So you've done your three albums. Are you the writer of all the songs apart from the New England songs, which you did the co-writing for? Are you the writer of all them songs, or did you have anybody who helped and co-wrote with you?
yeah, I mean, most of the songs, I start all the songs myself. And if I feel that I'm not getting somewhere, for instance, David Sumner, my buddy, I think we've got him as a co-writer on one or two of the songs. So I'll say, I'll bring David in. David, what do you think of this, man? I'm kind of stuck. Where would you go with that? And of course, obviously, I have no problem giving somebody the credit that they're due, even if it's just a small little part. It's not
Yeah,
necessarily all about the production and the co-writing and the money and the publishing and all that crap. I don't really believe in that.
just that little spark of inspiration, just to get you out of that little rut that you're in.
Yeah. The end result has got to be a song that resonates with everybody. And if David Sumner is going to suggest a lyric that might resonate with somebody that I don't come up with, oh God, yes,
Yeah,
let's use it.
yeah. And that's I like that way of writing. You get a lot of bands who they all chip in, and it's like a jam to get to where you're going. But you're a bit different with it, with you being a soloist. There's a lot more emphasis on your shoulders, a lot more weight for what you need to put out. So um, it's a much different process, even though you've now got three albums out. Have you got plans for a fourth?
Well, I've got, I'm taking a little bit of a break since I've worked for about 2 or 3 years on the other album. So it's interesting. I love blues because I grew up in Toronto with, everybody was playing blues back then. And I spent a lot of time in Chicago on South Michigan Avenue going into all these bars and, all these old black guys are like playing, like original, down home Southern blues. And I love that shit. It was just, wow. So recently I've called up a couple of tracks that I recorded over the years that are just like, blues riffs, 12 bar blues.
Yeah.
And so just the other night I cut a version of Stormy Monday Blues. And it's completely a different wheelhouse for me. But I don't know, man. I'm contemplating putting a blues album out. That is like so weird, but it's just I mean, I just love that style. I love the sound and the Jimmy Reed, all the old blues guys that Little Walter, Muddy Waters, So I'm thinking maybe I'll do something like that. Who knows? But for now, I'm enjoying the success of Third Time's a Charm,
Yeah.
digging hearing it on the radio, and loving doing some of these interviews with folks like you. So maybe we'll just rest for a
It,
while, but we'll get back in the
are you
studio.
gonna be learning how to do slide guitar then for your blues album?
Uh, Not me. I'm going to rely on some other people to do that. I got some friends that play wicked slide guitar.
Yeah, I've got a friend in Sheffield, Harris Nixon, and um, when they're performing and they're in full swing, and they play with everything. They pass him stuff from the bar like a mop, a fire extinguisher, and things like that.
Yeah.
And he plays with everything that they throw at him. He'll play with it, and it's fantastic. I love watching that.
Yeah. Play with a beer bottle or something.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
that's cool.
Yeah. So third time's a charm. You can buy it on CD, I presume, and other formats. Have you got it on vinyl?
Oh yeah, you know what? The vinyl sounds absolutely amazing. I know the folks in Europe. I just actually sent a vinyl to my buddy Chris Laney, but I played the vinyl the first time it came in, and I was like astounded at how great it sounds. So if you're a real audiophile out there, buy the vinyl because there's there's nothing worse than listening to it on Spotify as an MP3. So if you can get the CD and you still have a CD player, I just bought a new car and it doesn't have a damn CD player. It's like, what's going on? But definitely pick up the vinyl and the CD sounds really freaking good. So
Yeah. Well, as you can see, I love my vinyl, so I'll probably be looking at that then. So I'll add
yes,
it to my collection. But
and
so to go with the album, are you doing any touring?
actually I played. I was doing a lot of solo stuff for quite a long time, and so I haven't really done anything recently. And here's why: this I have a really bad injured finger, and it won't bend back.
Yeah.
So I can't really play drums right now, and I tried playing guitar the other night, and it was like it's just so painful.
Yeah. What did you
So I
do?
am. Excuse me.
What did you do? What happened?
So I actually am seeing a hand specialist, and they're trying to figure out why this tendon is not allowing my finger to bend back. You can see these
Yeah.
fingers here work, but this one,
Yeah.
ouch.
Yeah.
So
Um, uh,
um,
I don't know if you can see that.
yeah. So
I've
you have the
got
same thing?
I've got something called dupuytren's contracture or something, and it's um, over here it's called a Viking trait, and my fingers are both being pulled in. My dad had it as well,
So
so
does it really
I'm
hurt?
yeah,
Does it
yeah,
really
yeah,
hurt when you push back?
yeah, and I drop everything all the time. I dropped my camera, broke my lens three times now. It's not good.
Well, you know what I'm suffering through, and
Yeah,
I
and
tried
you
playing.
can't even push a door shut.
You can't. You can't.
No,
It's really painful.
yes. I use my fist now to shut the door. People think I'm just aggressive.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, but I can barely make a fist as well with this hand.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're just hoping for the
Oh,
best that it goes away.
yeah. How did you do it?
It just happened.
It just happened. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So the doctor is telling me that the tendon runs through the finger down
yeah.
to the
Down.
wrist,
Yeah,
but there's a node, and you can actually
yeah,
feel that there's a little lump,
yeah.
and the
That
lump,
that's what I've got. Yeah.
yeah, that's
See,
amazing.
I use this to scare children because I turn around and say, "You see this here? It's a dog bone." I said, "If you feel that," and they go like that, and they go woof, and they all cry and run away. It's really funny.
I'll have to remember that, man.
I've got a lot of children. I like to scare them. So
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
yeah. So you can't tour because your hand.
Correct. Which I'm
Yeah.
hoping this doesn't last for too long because,
Yeah.
I mean, I would play drums at home almost every day, and now it's just like I can't. It just hurts. It's very painful.
Yeah.
So
Oh, well, I
I'm
feel
hoping
for
they
you.
can. I'm hoping,
Yeah.
they may have to operate on it. If they do, then maybe it'll clear up. But we at this point we just don't know, and I'm sad. I need to
Yeah.
play, man.
Yeah. I really totally understand where you're coming from with that one. Going back to drumming though, who was your influence?
Well, way, way, way back, my aunt introduced me to a lot of the swing era music. Benny Goodman, Artie Shaw, Duke Ellington. So I started listening to that when I was like really, really young, like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old.
Good
And then,
education.
hmm?
Yeah, good education. That really
Oh
good.
yeah. And as I said earlier, that's when I started playing in a jazz band. And so, Buddy Rich, Gene Krupa, Davey Tuff, Ed Shaughnessy, drummers like that. And then as time went on, of course, Ringo Starr, John Bonham, and all those guys.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is I've never really had one particular drummer that I tried to emulate. I just kind of developed my own style. It's a very
Yeah.
simple style, but that's what I wanted to play. And so yeah, those were my early influences, and so for jazz and then rock and roll. So that's what
For
happened.
for me, drumming were always something in the background that I never really fully understood until I sat and watched Jimi Hendrix Experience and Mitch
Mm,
Mitchell and
yeah,
watching Mitch Mitchell. And then my ears pricked up, and then I started listening to Mitch Mitchell instead of watching him. And I found him utterly fascinating how simple he was. It was jazz. He was a jazz drummer, with the jazz grip, and he had a lot of um, subtleness about him. But I found him absolutely brilliant, and I loved his drumming. And that's when I started to notice drummers. And the Muppet Show Animal also helped with that education as well.
yeah, yeah. Well, there was, of course, there was Mitch Mitchell, and then there was, Keith Moon, which was like kind of an offshoot of what Mitch Mitchell was doing, and of course, Ginger
Yeah,
Baker. So I placed those three guys in a very, very similar circle because they were all influenced by jazz drummers.
yeah,
And of course, Keith Moon took it to another level, being, the slamming drummer that he was, and playing as many notes as he did, but still not getting in the way of the song,
yes, yeah.
which
And
was
that's
the
the trick.
genius, which was the
Yeah,
genius of Keith Moon. I mean,
yeah.
I tried doing that in a couple of songs, and it sounded like crap. It's like, no, that's not working. But Keith Moon just got it.
Yeah, it's a bit like my favorite band's Iron Maiden, and you had the first drummer Clive Burr, and he really hit hard, and then you got Nico McBrain, and he was a lot more subtle on his drumming. He was
Hmm.
a totally different drummer, and the new drummer whose name escapes me, he's a lot like the original drummer. It's like they've gone into full circle. But yeah, I love a good drummer. I love listening to a good drummer, and I have to say, yeah, I'm really impressed with what I've heard from you. And since I've researched you, it's been an education listening to you.
Oh, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
I'm coming to the end of the interview. My lady, my beautiful lady, always gives me a question to ask the person I'm interviewing, and it's basically, can you tell us something about you that we don't know?
Something about me. Wow, that's a great question, and tell her thank you for that. Um, Something about me that people don't know. It's my heart and soul has always been in music. I mean, I'm doing this for so many years. When I was 4, 5, 6 years old, I would listen to Mahalia Jackson uh, coming out of Detroit Sunday afternoon at her church services, and that was so inspirational. And I was nowhere near being a musician at that time, and didn't really even have you know any notion that that would be where I was going, but it affected me internally, emotionally. It was just like, can you imagine a 5, 6, 7 year old getting that involved in the soul of that she was presenting in her songs and her vocals. So I think that that's one of the things that I've always carried through, and maybe people know that, maybe they don't know that, but it's that inner soul and emotional charge that you get that I still get even today after 50, 60, 70 years in the music business, that I will carry that to my grave, because music has meant so much to me. It's all I've ever done, and hopefully I can continue doing that in the future and continue putting out music. And if for anything, it's just I'm doing it for the love that I have of doing music,
Yeah.
and that's I think the best I can describe your lady's question and answer.
Oh, no, that's beautiful, brilliant. So thank you very much for giving me your time and patience, and it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Dale, thank you so much for your time. And it's guys like you that help keep this ball rolling down the hill. And I really appreciate you and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, my friend. Bye bye.
Okay, bye.